Okay, so today I'm wanting to share just a prophetic word based on the things that have happened over the last few days. Today is the 21st of October, and I'm wanting to be able to share this word where it started within this week, where the Father has started to give me scripture. Well, He actually gave me a number, 1111. I didn't understand the number 1111. And so I looked at my phone and I saw this 1111. And sometimes when I see numbers, I ask the Father, what are you trying to say to me? But on that day, I didn't ask Him. I think it was Monday or Tuesday of this week, and I didn't really ask Him. I looked at it and it's sort of like something came up in my spirit, but I just ignored it. And so on Wednesday, I got the number again. And the number came up on my phone again, and it was 1111 again. And I said, Father, what do you want to say to me from 1111? And as He gave me 1111, He said Jeremiah 1111, which was very soft, still voice that I heard when I got it the first time, which was either Monday or Tuesday. I got that same verse, Jeremiah 11:11, and that's why I sort of like just made as if I didn't really hear it, because it was very soft. But now it was not very soft, and I said to Him, Father, that is not a good word. I said, why are you giving me Jeremiah 11:11? So I'm going to read to you what Jeremiah 11:11 says. Jeremiah 11:11 says, Therefore, thus said Yahuwah, see, I am bringing evil on them, which they are unable to escape. Then they shall cry out to me, but I shall not listen to them. Now, this is not a good word. So there are a people that are going to be crying out to the Father, and He's not going to listen to them. And I said, Father. And I just knew that there in my spirit, that there is many prayers going up at the moment that the Father is not going to listen to. There's many things being cried out at the moment that the Father is not going to listen to. As He has told me this many times before. In 2021, there was a prayer beckoning that went forth, a prophet in this nation that also sent out a prophetic word in South Africa, that everybody were together. And the Father gave a prophetic word out of my mouth, and He said to me, I will not listen to the prayer. And instead, He gave me Ezekiel 9, Jeremiah 9, and Isaiah 9. And all of those scriptures are really very much a kind of a judgment. And especially in Jeremiah 9, I think it talks about wormwood. And He said, they only pray because they want their lives to go back to normal, but they don't really want to repent from their wicked ways. So they only pray because they want to enjoy their lives and they want everything to be like it was, but they have no desire to truly repent and turn from their wicked ways. So I really was in turmoil over the word that the Father was giving me. And it was difficult because now it was a case of how am I supposed to pray? Because if I don't pray according to His leading, it's going to make very difficult how the prayer would be answered. So on Thursday, Father had me watch something that was very disturbing to me, because it was something that someone sent me, and when I watched this, it really turned my life a little bit upside down, because I know when I see something, when truth comes, I know when I see something, when it is the Father speaking to me, because I know how to discern my Father's voice. And this really shook me. And it shook my foundations in my pattern of thinking and my ways of thinking about the way I see things, the way I understand things, especially sometimes in a political arena. I'm not talking about my foundation being shaken too much in my understanding of my foundation of my faith, but also in my foundation, in the way I understand things, in also a pattern of thinking of where you allow yourself to be led astray by what you perceive to understand, by what you see going on in a physical realm. And that will be able to bring a deception in your understanding of what the Father is trying to show you in a spiritual realm. And so Thursday was a difficult day for me, and I spent a lot of time really just weeping before the Father as I watched this, and it really disturbed me. It rattled me and it disturbed me. So on Friday, yesterday, I was sharing with someone about the things that the Father is revealing to me, because she asked me a very specific question. And when she asked me the question, I needed to be honest. And then I went and I said, the Father has given me Jeremiah 11:11. And so when I went to read Jeremiah 11:11, the Father said, don't start at 11. He said, start reading from verse 9. So when I started reading Jeremiah 11 from verse 9, it says, and Yahuwah said to me, there is a conspiracy among the men of Yehudah and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They have turned back to the crookednesses of their forefathers who refused to hear my words, and they have gone after other mighty ones to serve them. The house of Israel and the house of Yehudah have broken my covenant I made with their fathers. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah, see, I am bringing evil on them, which they are unable to escape. Then they shall cry out to me, but I shall not listen to them. So now, when I read the entirety of when he said to me, start reading at verse 9, then exactly what I watched on Thursday was confirmed to me. Because, it's one thing when you watch something and you say to yourself, well, maybe, just maybe, this is again something to come and bring deception. So Father made sure that by Friday, by yesterday, I knew that which I watched was coming from Him. Because of what is going on. There's a conspiracy. There is a plan. There is a plot. There is many things that people do not see and do not understand that's going on behind the scenes, which is what I've spoken from the beginning. And then, after I had read this, I had listened to a prophetic word. I was sent a prophetic word by an intercessor friend of mine. She actually sent it to me on Monday, but I didn't listen to it because Monday was a busy day. So yesterday she decided, because I didn't respond to her, she decided to send it to me again. And this time she sent it on Telegram. So I put on this prophetic word. I do not know who this woman is. I have no idea. I do not know. I don't listen to a lot of these prophets that come from church prophets or anything like that. I don't really listen to things like that. But this was sent to me with a very urgent message to say, please listen, the prophets must arise. And I thought, okay, so I listened. When I was just a few minutes into this prophetic word, I was on the floor repenting, and really repenting, not repenting. I was weeping in lamentation. I was weeping in travail to the word that I was hearing, because she came to the place of where she said, the prophets have spoken. You have spoken as Jeremiah. The prophets have spoken Jeremiah 23. But at the time that it came forth, it was in a time of peace. But we are now in a time of war. And the prophetic word spoke on how it's time to come up into the war room, because we are now in a time of war. The prophetic word spoke and said that he is now going to deal with all of those that are using his platform for their own gain, for their own selfish means, for their own self-advertisement, and for all of this. He's now going to deal with those severely. And all of this is coming to an end. And he's starting a new era. And the new era that is coming is that he says, I'm going to raise up my prophets now. And she says it, prophets rise up. And I was weeping. And she said, there will be a fivefold ministry. There will be a fivefold group of people now that are going to raise up, that are going to get new orders, that the Father's giving new instruction, new orders. It's time for them to rise up. They are not going to do things the way it was done before. They're going to hear new things that's going to be spoken to them. And the reason why I was crying so uncontrollably, to the extent that I eventually vomited. It's like I had to vomit out the old to bring forth the new. Because that's what it felt in my spirit. Because this word was everything that I have known, that I have been speaking, that the Father has been revealing. So it was like I was weeping to such a degree that, when you weep, that eventually you vomit. And many times I go through a physical manifestation of something that must be in the spirit. So it's almost like I had to vomit out the old in order to be able to birth the new, as this prophet spoke. And so she said, when she said, if you look in the rearview mirror, you see the church in the distance. That is the old. I am birthing a new. And it will not be like it was. It will not be the same thing. And many of my servants now, I'm giving them the new orders. I'm showing them new things. And that is what made it even more cringing for me. And it's not going to be the way you understand things. And you're not going to understand it the way it was. And this had just happened to me on Thursday. And that's why this was so real to me. Because just on Thursday, Father had shattered things in me. And I'd already started weeping about things that he started showing me already on Thursday. And now I'm hearing this prophetic word. And she speaks about how there's going to be teachers, and there's going to be apostles and prophets and evangelists and teachers that are going to come forth, but they're going to speak a different message. Because they've come into a war room. They've been called up into a war room. And they're giving new set of instructions because we've entered into a new era. And now I want you to understand what a confirmation this is. This is such a confirmation because at the end of Sukkot, at the very end of Sukkot, on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, I was at my son's wedding, just the day that there was the Feast of Sukkot. I was at a wedding. So the whole time on as I woke up on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, and we were away because the wedding was up on the mountains away. And so when I just kept hearing the Father say, a war and a wedding feast, a war and a wedding feast. And that morning when we went for breakfast at this place where we were staying, we went for breakfast. I looked up by the cliffs where we were staying. And as I looked up, I saw many eagles. I've never seen so many eagles flying together in a formation, a round formation in a circle. Eagles flying in a circle. And I was blown away. The Father, when I was sitting at the table, the Father said to me, look up. And when I looked up, I saw all these eagles. And then I was reminded a little bit later of a vision that I had 5 years ago. 5 years ago at round about near the time of Sukkot, 2018, I had a vision at a prayer meeting that we were at where this man was playing the harp. And while he was playing the harp, I entered into a vision. And I saw many eagles coming. Many eagles, they were coming from different places. So they were just one eagle here, one eagle there, but they started to join each other. And the more and more and more of them came. So it was one eagle alone, but they started to join each other and they all started to come together. And as they came together, they started to soar in a formation, a round formation, forming like a circle in the sky as they were soaring. What I was seeing now physically on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot. And if you remember, the Father said that on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, He was going to raise up a kingly priesthood. He started Sukkot with the priestly priesthood, and He was going to end with the kingly priesthood, because there was going to be this kingly priestly priesthood that was going to raise up kings and priests that were going to be released. And He had told me that the color, and that was the color that I wore for my son's wedding, was like a bronze color and purple. Now purple is an earthly authority, where the blue is the heavenly authority. So He told me to start Sukkot with the blue and gold that was for the earthly, for the heavenly authority, with the glory of the heavenly kingdom. But He told me to end the feast, that I was going to start the feast. So I started the feast on the Saturday night with that color of the bronze for humility, and then the purple for the kingly anointing. And that He said to me that at the end of Sukkot, He was going to raise up a priesthood that was going to be released. Kings and priests that would be released. So on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, I'm seeing this eagles. And now I was being reminded of the vision. And all these people were coming together. In my vision, it was eagles coming together that started to soar in a formation of going around in a circle. And as they soared around in a circle, it created a vortex of light. So it created like a vacuum. It created like a tunnel of light that was creating this glory of light. And as they created this glory of light, people standing around looking at this were so drawn to it that they had everything in them just jumped into that light because they desired this light with everything in their being. And they threw themselves into this vortex tunnel of light. And as they threw themselves in there, they started to swirl around in the light, and the clothes that they were wearing was taken off and replaced with clothes of white clothes, and then they were spat out from the top of the center of this tunnel, this vacuum, and they were thrown out from the top, and they were brought back to the earth, dressed in white, ready to serve in the kingdom, transformed and renewed for the Father's glory. And so I've carried this vision for very long, for 5 years, not understanding the vision. And only when I saw these eagles on the last day of the Feast of Sukkot, then it made sense when the Father said, I am now releasing my priesthood. Now, it's one thing when he tells you something, because you are a prophetic person, so he can sometimes tell you something, but it might only happen maybe in a year or two's time, because that's how it is sometimes with prophetic people, because sometimes prophetic people don't always get the timing right. So they release the prophetic word, but sometimes it takes time before the prophetic word is released. So if you remember at the beginning of these feasts, which I spoke at the beginning of these feasts, and I said it was a very important timing that we came into, because as we entered into the feast of Yom Teruah, as we entered into the Feast of Yom Teruah, starting the Feast of Yom Teruah, as we entered into the Feast of Yom Teruah, we were entering into a time of where all around us there was a mini tsunami that hit the Western Cape, and there were winds that was up to 70 kilometers an hour, and the Father spoke a word, and he said to me, I am going to uproot everything that is not of me. The winds of change have started to blow, and I'm going to bring the waters to wash away and cleanse everything. But I'm going to start uprooting what is not of me. I'm going to start to uproot, and the winds of change have started to blow. And if you remember, I released a word, and the word that I released was the change of the guard. And the change of the guard was about a new priesthood that was about to be released upon the earth, that there was a new priesthood that was going to be released upon the earth. And the priesthood was going to be a new order. And that is the word that the Father said when he said, this is the word that you release. The word that you release is that there is a new priesthood that is about to arise. There is a new priesthood. So, the Father has said that there was... So I just want you to understand everything that the Father is speaking. He gives me 11:11. He says, I'm not going to hear the prayers. He's giving me all these things. And by yesterday, he gives me this prophetic word. He gives me the prophetic word that tells me that now this prophetic word that is being spoken is exactly coming at this time, which is the releasing of this fivefold ministry, which is these eagles that I saw that were coming together in my vision, that this is what is being released. It's this new group of people. It's this priesthood that's raising up. It's Yeshua's bride that's now going to raise up in these last days, his servants that are now going to raise up and be thrust forth in order to do his work. Because what was that vision about? They need to come together in unity to start operating according to what the Father is doing, because if they did not come into unity, they would not be able to create the vacuum of light. So they're all going to start to hear what the Father is speaking, and there's going to be one voice and one sound that's going to come forth, and these people are responsible for bringing mobilization with gathering people that are going to start bringing about the kingdom purposes of the Father to bring in the harvest, because it's all about bringing in the harvest. Because now in the vision, in this prophetic word that she speaks, she says that she then sees the angels and she hears them lamenting. She hears them wailing. They are wailing in heaven. They are weeping and wailing, lamenting, which is what I was doing before I even heard that she saw angels in heaven lamenting. I was lamenting because of that which is coming upon the earth. But another group of angels were rejoicing, seriously rejoicing for the great harvest that is coming into the kingdom. So at a time of the war, there's going to be a wedding feast, because a bride is raising up at the greatest, darkest hour, because that is what Isaiah chapter 60 says. Arise and shine, for your light has come, for the glory of Yahuwah has risen upon you. Great darkness will cover the earth, but they are going to come. They will come to the brightness of your light. So that is where we are going to bring forth the light of the Father, which is what these eagles were doing, bringing the light, so that they would be drawn to the light, who is Abba Father himself. Then, for the Father to make sure that I understand what he's saying, to understand his timing, to understand that he's speaking. Elsie and I were sitting at the dinner table last night, and we blew our shofars for the beginning of Shabbat. And then we sat down and we broke bread, and we took our cup and we broke the bread. And just as we started to eat our meal, I have a picture in one of these picture frames, in a frame, of a priest lighting a menorah. Above my menorah in my lounge. And this I brought from Israel. I bought it in Jerusalem at the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Of the priest in the temple lighting a menorah. And I have it above my menorah. This photo frame fell to the ground for no reason. No reason at all. There was no gust of wind. It wasn't because the nail fell off the wall. It wasn't for any reason. The whole picture frame fell on the ground and shattered. And Elsie and I look at each other. Now, if I was not a prophetic person, I would say, oh, well, okay, so that just fell. But I am a prophetic person. And I looked at Elsie and I said, oh my goodness, what was that? So I said, oh no, I know exactly what the Father is saying. I'm sure I know what the Father is saying. I said, but maybe I should just quickly maybe phone someone very prophetic and just ask them just to be able to tell me what it is that's just happened here. She said, Natalia, what is your problem? Ask the Father. Why don't you ask the Father? What is the Father saying to you? Why do you need to ask someone? I said, maybe it's me. What have I done wrong? Has he now all of a sudden told me that, what have I done wrong? She said, ask the Father. And I wanted to phone somebody and say, this is what happened. Would you tell me what this is about? And the Father spoke to me and said, my child, did I not say to you that I'm coming to the end of a priesthood? Did I not say to you that the priesthood is not going to stand? Where was this priesthood? This priesthood was of the old priesthood, the one of the temple. That temple no longer stands. And everything attached to that temple will not stand, because I will not dwell in a temple made of man's hands. That priesthood was an old order. That was the order that is coming to an end. I told you at the beginning of Yom Teruah that I am changing the guard. I told you at the end of Sukkot that I am birthing a new priesthood. It cannot stay on the wall. And that priest of that temple fell to the ground. And everything that belongs to that priesthood has fallen to the ground. And the Father has said, it is finished, that priesthood. Everything that comes from a Saul priesthood now, from a Saul generation, from that generation, from this religious age, is going to come to an end now. It's fallen to the ground. Behold, I do a new thing. This woman's words was, a new era has begun. It was very interesting. It's the same words that Netanyahu spoke at his speech when he spoke at the United Nations, holding a map of an Israel. Maybe we should look at that map, because on that map, those that were not belonging on that map were not there on the map. And he gave a word from Jeremiah 11, from verse 9, that says, conspiracy going on in my land. It's going to fall to the ground. Everything that man's agenda, everything that man is doing that is not of my doing, is going to fall to the ground now. It's coming to an end. I'm bringing an end to an old order, a religious system. This prophet's prophetic word was, look in the rearview mirror. What you see in the rearview mirror is the church that was, not the new. I am birthing the new. Oh, Netanyahu knew what he was speaking about, a new era. Because yes, the enemy is birthing his new era. But don't worry. At the same time as the enemy has his plans, Abba Yahuwah has his plans. And Abba Yahuwah is going to raise up his army now. And who is this coming out of the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? We have been in a wilderness, beloveds, to be equipped with our boots for battle, with our sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Yahuwah, so that we can come forth and stand in an hour which we are going to see the greatest atrocities. Remember, judgment starts in his house first. Judgment starts in his house first. So you must understand, he spoke at the beginning of Sukkot and he said, I'm going to judge your fruit. By the end of Sukkot, I will judge your fruit. What fruit have you given me? Fruit was judged in his own house first. So judgment starts in his house first. And then the shaking is going to be, as I will shake the nations of the earth. The word that he's given me, everything that's going to be shaken will be shaken. And he needs to shake us either into position, or we're going to shake out of control with fear. So you're either going to be shaken into position, or you are either going to shake out of control with the fear. Man's hearts will fail them for fear. Because the fear, you're either going to fear Yahuwah and come into position, or you're either going to fear what's going to come upon the earth, and man's hearts are going to fail them for fear, and they will fall because of fear. The word that he gave at the beginning of Sukkot was, you will know the fear of Yahuwah upon the nations of the world. He's going to make himself known. And that was the fear that gripped me when that fell to the ground. Understand, this is a priest lighting a menorah in the temple. And that's the poster that fell to the ground. And that's why the fear of Yahuwah gripped me, because I thought, what have I done? Have I done something wrong? And it wasn't about me. It's about what the Father's been trying to tell me for the last few weeks, since the beginning of Yom Teruah. This is not going to be done the way it was before. You have to have your ear at the heart of Yahuwah now, and your finger on the pulse of time, because you will get new instructions and new orders. Don't just pray what your flesh wants to pray. You pray when I tell you to pray, and you pray what I tell you to pray. You pray when I tell you to pray, and you pray what I tell you to pray. You're no longer your own. You have a new master. Remember the prophetic word, he said, many people have bowed to a new master. We have our ruler, creator, Abba Yahuwah. We have a captain of the army of hosts, Yahushua HaMashiach, who is the one leading us, who is the one guiding us, who is the one taking us into the fullness of what he has ordained. And we are to follow him. We are to be like doves, with only having dove's eyes. The cooing of the dove has gone out in the land. When my son was getting married on that day of the 7th of October, as my son was getting married just after 3:00, as the bride came down into the chapel, into this where it's like a chapel but open, and she was drinking the cup, like the Jewish bride that drinks the cup when the bridegroom gives her the cup. And as they were exchanging the cup, doing their wedding vows, a dove started cooing. A dove. The sound of a dove, loud because everything is quiet, and you could hear it so loud. And the Father is saying, my bride, as my son and his wife, his bride, stood, looked at each other, they only had eyes for one another. Their eyes did not leave each other's gaze. As they exchanged this cup, as they drank from the cup, are we willing to drink from the cup that our bridegroom is prepared to give us? Just as it was in that night when he sat with his disciples and sat at the table and broke bread and gave them the cup. Did they understand what they were going to have to go through straight after that? Do we understand what we are about to go into? There is a dark day ahead of us. But are we willing to drink the cup, to be able to follow our Messiah no matter what? And straight after they finished and consummated the marriage with their kiss, as they kissed, a beautiful white butterfly outlined with yellow for the glory fluttered over around the two of them, and the Father said, I am birthing my bride now. This is my wife. This is my wife. She's become my wife. I have need of her. I have need of this bride now. We need to be one now, so that you no longer operate in your own strength of yourself. We are one. And I'm birthing what is new, in purity, holiness, filled with my glory. That butterfly, the new thing. I'm birthing the new thing. So how difficult it was for me sitting at a wedding, and at the same time my heart divided, ripped apart by a war in the land of Israel. But the Father was saying to me, my child, are you ready? Because I have need of you. I will release you into that which I have ordained. And so I want to finish off with the very prophetic word that I've already put on the group, but for those that are listening that are maybe on the YouTube channel. It's a war and a wedding feast, and it's a prophetic word by Sarah van Vieren, a prophet of the Father, and this is what she says. And the title, this was given to us last week as we were in our Shabbat meeting, and I opened up this book of hers because I was going to read something that the Father had given me, and then I opened up on a lion in the front page, the lion, and it says a war and a wedding feast. And I want to just close off with these words, and it says, yes, my child, there will be a war, and there will also be a wedding feast. I have warned you about these times through Daniel, through John, and many more. I am now reminding you again that dark days are ahead, but rejoice, for your light has come. I am the Prince of Peace, but in order for my kingdom to come to earth, a great shaking must take place. Many will not be able to stand through it because they have loved their lives, the things of this world, too much. I am calling you to overcome through my blood, in order to be prepared to be the city on a hill. My bride is the new Jerusalem, being built with living stones. These living stones are your obedience. Hold fast, for there will be darkness upon the earth. Run the race of faith to the end with endurance and faith. Behold, your bridegroom comes quickly. Amen. Beloveds of the King, don't put your eyes on an earthly Jerusalem when there is a heavenly Jerusalem that is going to be able to come in the days ahead. Understand, many things you're going to see that's going to devastate your heart, your vision, your ears. It's going to be very difficult what you see. Let us not put our eyes on an earthly kingdom. Let us put our eyes on a heavenly kingdom. Our concern right now is to bring souls into the kingdom. Our concern right now is to be able to make sure that with everything that is going on the earth is to be able to now bring the people back to the Father, so that we can be people that can stand and repent before the Father, to bring in the people, to be able to speak the message that He's got for us to speak with His authority and His power, so that people can start hearing His voice, repenting from their evil ways, because they will see, they will hear, and they will know, and they will come back to Him. The old priesthood and the old way of doing things has fallen. And the Father says, it's time for the new. So let us arise. Let me declare this over you this day. Let me declare this over you this day, as this is the word that we need to arise into. Because the Father said that after Yom Teruah, that this priesthood is going to be a priesthood that's going to arise, a Melchizedek priesthood that's going to walk in the glory. So I want to declare this over you as we finish off. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the esteem of Yahuwah has risen upon you. Look, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness the people. But Yahuwah arises over you, and His esteem is seen upon you. And the nations shall come to your light, and sovereigns to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see. All of them have gathered. They have come to you. Your sons come from afar, and your daughters are supported on the side. Then you shall see and be bright, and your heart shall throb and swell. For the wealth of the sea is turned to you, and the riches of the nations come to you. It's time for us to rise up in the fullness of that which the Father has ordained. Please do not allow yourself to be taken up by the things that's going on around you. This world is a stage, and the puppets there's people that are pulling the strings with the puppets that they have put on this earth to be able to bring about what they want to bring about. Don't get tied into what you're seeing going on around you. Keep your hearts right before the Father. Allow the Father to fill your heart with love. We have to love, because the Father is love. Do not allow hatred, bitterness, anger, unforgiveness to rage within your hearts. That is the enemy's plan. Do not look with the eyes of what you see. It's all a stage. It's all part of the conspiracy plan to bring about the things, and millions are being deceived. Beloveds, stay with your ear at the heart of the Father to receive His instruction, to receive His order, because you are being called to a war room to receive His orders, His instructions, His plans on what He needs for you to do in this hour to bring about His kingdom. It's not about the earthly kingdoms of this world. It's about His kingdom needing to come. Be about His kingdom. Do not be about the kingdoms of the world. Do not worry what Babylon is doing. He's called us to come out of Babylon and to be seated with Him in heavenly places so that we can receive our instructions on how to pray, on how to be mobilized to bring in the great harvest that needs to come in these dark days. May Abba Yahuwah bless you all. Shalom.